There you go.
Welcome to today's webinar, Building a Star Partnership. And I am so excited today because I love this topic. I believe the assistant executive partnership is one of the most vital relationships in the workplace. And look at, we've got everybody joining us from all over the country and the world. I'm glad you're here today. We are going to have a full hour of learning how to really build your partnerships. I'm Joan Burge, founder and CEO of Office Dynamics International. We are a global leader in the development and presentation of sophisticated training programs and information for administrative professionals and their executives. I'm also the author of 4 books for assistants, including the Amazon bestseller, Who Took My Pen Again? Well, before I begin the program, I just have a few logistics to review with you, and then we'll get started. So first of all, I wanted you to know that the platform we use for our webinars is called Webinar Jam. And we have been using this platform for 2 years with pretty much success. But Webinar Jam has changed up the process for their platform. And so today is the first day we are using Webinar Jam with a new streaming process. So please be patient with us. We're praying that all the technology is going to work. Also remember, sometimes the technology issues are though on your end, and our administrator will be happy to help you through the chat box if you're having any issues. I will speak for about 40 minutes today, and then we will allow time for Q&A. You can submit your questions anytime during the webinar, and then we'll have those available when we do get to the end of the program. There is also a handout for today, so I hope you've been able to access that handout because I am going to be using it throughout the entire session. We will also be sending a replay link to you. So if you want to play something again, you want to hear something over again, you'll have that replay link, or in case you missed part of the live webinar, we will have that for you. So are you ready? As I said, we have a lot of territory to cover today. We're going to talk about the stages of growth for a partnership. I'm going to be covering perceptions and expectations and why communication is so vital to having a great relationship. I'm also going to share with you something that I framed executive speak. We're also going to cover some strategies for managing multiple managers. And I think I have a few other little goodies in there for you today. So again, welcome everyone. So first of all, I wanted to share with you some survey results. We had about, I think, 1,800 webinar attendees complete our survey. And so if you have your handout, those are in the handout. We asked 2 very simple questions. The first question was, how many managers do you support? As we all know, today assistants are supporting more than one person. And in fact, if you only support one executive, it's a real luxury. So here is what our survey showed. I'll go through that quickly. So actually 21% said just one, and you are the lucky people. 23% said 2, 41% are supporting 3 to 5, 12% are supporting 5 to 10, and 4% support more than 10. And let's clarify what we mean by supporting multiple managers. It does not mean that that assistant is doing the work of all those people every single day, right? I remember when I was an assistant in the mid-'80s and we were living in Asheville, North Carolina, I was supporting the senior executive of that division and then about 5 people within that facility, some of the directors. So I wasn't doing their work all the time, but I did have to be available for them. And if you'd like to jump in the chat box and just let us know how many managers you support, it might be interesting to see, for those of you who are on today, how many people you're supporting. The second question we asked, this is a good one. How would you describe your primary partnership? So the person that, of course, you support the most, how would you describe it? And we had three options. So the first statement was, we need a lot of help becoming a team, and there were 9%. The second, we have an okay relationship, but we have a lot of work to do. So that's really good. 60% of you felt that way. And then the last statement, we have an awesome strategic partnership, and we actually had 32%. So I was really happy to hear that. Now, even if you have an awesome partnership, there is always room to grow. Because if you're a star team, you're always looking for those processes that you can refine, that you can streamline. You're always looking at ways to, build a stronger relationship. So as we go through today's program, how should you approach this if you support multiple people? Well, a lot of the advice that I'm going to give you applies to working with multiple managers. So if I'm talking about communication, you would still use a lot of these tips communicating with the different people you support. If you have a great relationship, I would look for those golden nuggets that I'm going to share that you can use to take your partnership to the next level. So if you look at your handout, and hopefully everyone's got this. If you don't, this is a visual that I created several years ago, and I call it the stages of growth for an executive and assistant. How do I know that there are these different stages? Well, because I experienced them. When I worked in the administrative profession for 20 years, I worked in several different companies, and I had several different relationships. And I realized that with some of those managers, I had what I would call a team relationship. So that would be where you go to work and you get along well and you get the work done. And by the way, as I go through these stages, I'd like you to think about where you are on the pyramid. The second stage is what I call the star partnership stage. So that's where you are aligning yourselves with each other. You're able to answer your executive's question before they've even asked you that question. You're in sync. You're talking about your goals together, your priorities together, and there's more personal connection. And then stage 3, which you could see is actually the thinnest of the stages, and that's on purpose. Not everyone reaches the strategic partnership stage, but I want to encourage you to strive for it. So when you have a strategic partnership, you are basically strategizing of how the business is going to be run, whatever that business is, whatever department you're in. You're running the ball down the field with your executive. You're not sitting on the sidelines cheering your executive on, but you're involved. You're holding quarterly strategic meetings with each other to discuss upcoming events and assignments and projects and tasks, and you're establishing a strategy of how you're going to accomplish those goals together. Also in the strategic partnership, there are some things that just happen naturally. When I think about my strategic partnerships that I had when I was an assistant, I would define it as chemistry. So there's a certain chemistry that happens. So we can't often control it. It's just who we are. When you're in the strategic partner stage, your values are quite similar. You're in alignment. So it's a very different feeling. And actually, again, I would love for you to share in the chat, where are you on this pyramid? If you really were to step back for a moment and evaluate your relationship with your primary executive or manager, are you at stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3? So let us know. I'd love to hear from you. Of course, your goal is to move up the pyramid. So again, maybe everyone will not reach the top of stage 3, but your goal is to move up that pyramid. And if you get at the high level of stage 2, you are in a really, really good place. And I'm looking at the chat. We've got stage 1, we have several stage 2s. Stage 3, yay, good for you. So I want to encourage you to keep your momentum with the stage 3. That's pretty awesome. So thank you for sharing. I love it. I love it. Let's move on. This is one of my most favorite areas to discuss, and this will truly create the most impact in your relationship. This is what I call the foundation for a successful partnership, and it has to do with perceptions and expectations. Let's look at the definition in your handout. It's at the top of your page. So when I'm talking about perceptions, I'm talking about perceptions about the roles. So perceptions about your role, perceptions about your leader's role. Perceptions have to do with the team relationship. In other words, how do you perceive your team relationship should work? How does your manager perceive your team relationship should work? Perceptions also have to do with the quality of work performance. So in other words, what is your view of the quality of your work and your daily performance versus that of your executives? Now I'm going to give you some insight here a minute before I go on to expectations. I have been coaching executive and assistant teams personally, one-on-one, for 26 years. This is the biggest area that we focus on. And this is where we make the greatest breakthrough in creating a stronger team and increasing a team's productivity. And what I often find, and really have found 99% of the time, executives and assistants are not on the same page when it comes to perceptions and expectations. In fact, I just coached 10 high-level executive and assistant teams a couple weeks ago in Minnesota. And we did pre-analysis surveys. I found that 9 out of the 10 teams disagreed in more than 50% of the areas in how they perceive the relationship and the assistant's performance. Now, don't let that scare you. I'm making a point. And the point is, this is like the best kept secret that you want to know about. This will truly unlock your future in having a better relationship with the people you support. Expectations is tied to tasks. So what tasks do you expect you should perform, and what tasks does your executive expect you to perform? Now, I know you talk about this, but it tends to be in a way of they just tell you what to do. Set this up, do this, here's a new assignment, here's a new project. I'm talking about sitting down and really getting into the nitty-gritty and really understanding, again, where you are. Sometimes assistants want to do more, want more challenging work, and they're not getting that opportunity. So they need to communicate with their executive as to what they expect out of their job and their role. So what I have for you here in your handout is one of the tools I use in my coaching sessions. It's called Determining the Effectiveness of Current Tasks. Now, this tool and other tools that I have are strictly to open the lines of communication between executives and assistants. We don't use these tools to get raises, okay? These are strictly to open the lines of communication so that you and your executive can get on the same page, so that you can clarify expectations, so you can get confirmation, and then from there set goals as to where you need to go in the future. So again, I'm sharing this with you. This is typically proprietary information, but I want you to have this, and let me just walk you through it a little bit, how this works and the purpose this serves. So if you look at your handout, as it says, there are the 3 objectives. This is a great tool. Now you will use this, you and your executive. If you support multiple people, you can give each manager their own copy of this. So I am happy for you to make copies of this. The directions are, so what you would do is you would take this yourself and you would fill this out and rate your level of effectiveness. So if you think about over a year's time, and we look at the first one, promotes a balanced life for your leader, what percentage would you say, how effective are you over a year's time? So you might say, well, 60%. Maybe I don't really do it as often as I should do that. Now, your manager or managers and executives will fill out their own form. You do not do this together. You do this in private, and then you will come together and discuss your findings. So your executive would also complete this. Then what you do, and this is what I do when I'm coaching, is you would get together and you would place their answers or their little assessment next to what you've completed. And then I take a highlighter and I highlight wherever there is a discrepancy. So let's say, for example, you rated yourself and gave yourself 80% effectiveness and promotes a balanced life for leader, and they marked 60%. I would highlight that. So the first thing you do is go through every line item, highlight wherever you see a discrepancy. Then you're going to go back and you and your executive are going to discuss these. But there's a very important way to discuss these. You want to use this as a learning opportunity for yourself. And you also want to uncover any blind spots, things you don't see that your executive does see. So if we took the first one, and I selected a few to share with you, promotes a balanced life for leader. If I were the assistant, what I would say is, well, Ms. Executive, I noticed you gave me a 60% on this, and I gave myself an 80% because I do think I do a pretty good job of balancing your calendar for some personal time and work. What is it I'm not doing? What would you like me to do in that area that I'm not doing for you? What do you see that I don't see? What is missing? You've got to get them to talk to you. And this is what I do in my coaching session. You cannot possibly meet expectations if you do not know exactly what it looks like to your executive. Let's take the second one. Another one to rate is recommends improved systems and procedures. This is probably one where an executive is going to rate a lower score because I see this often rated at a lower end. So, but again, I've also seen where the executive rates the assistant higher than he or she rates him or herself. So again, you would look at that and you might say, if it were positive, you might say, well, wow, I noticed you gave me an 80% and I only gave myself a 60%. That's pretty cool. I'm glad you think I'm doing a great job at that. And then I would still say, what do you see in me that I don't see in myself? Then you're getting positive feedback, and that will help you stay on course. I want to see if there's anything else. Like I said, this is probably the best advice I could give you for today's program. Now, you have to have the courage to do this. You have to have the courage to ask and to get honest feedback and assessment. But I guarantee it will open a whole new world to you and will build a stronger relationship with your executive. And they will respect you for wanting to do this and for wanting to get this vital information. All right, let's move on. Is everyone still with me? And I'm also watching our time. Yes, communication is the key. Thank you. That's Shelley. Yes, yes, yes. Um, what percentage between the two answers is deemed a discrepancy? Okay, thank you. Very good question. It's just off by one. So any of them. In other words, it if you do not perfectly align, if you do not, like if you gave yourself 80% and your executive gives you 80%, you're fine. You don't even have to discuss those. It's where you have any differentiation. Okay, so maybe you gave yourself 80% and they gave you 60%. The farther away your percentages are, the more talking you need to do. In other words, if you rated yourself an 80 and you got a 40%, then you really need to dig deep and question your executive, and don't be offended, don't take it personally. This is great news because it's just going to give you a clear picture of what your executive really needs and wants from you. And when you're in alignment and you're delivering with what your executive expects, you're going to have more opportunities given to you. It could definitely affect your pay raises in the future, even though this is not a performance review, but it can impact you. So let's move on to the next piece I want to share with you today. Another way to really build a great partnership, not only with your executive, but anyone in a management position, is what I call executive speak. Do executives and managers talk differently than assistants? Yes, they do. When I was an assistant, I loved to watch all the executives and managers in the organizations that I worked. I listened to the words they used. I watched how they manage conflict. I watched how they manage stress. That's how I learn, is by really observing and watching. And do you know what? Since I've started my business in 1990, I still listen to executives. They have incredible language. They have incredible ways of saying things. And I want to continue to grow in my own executive speak. So, what is it? What I'd like you to do is we go through this list, think about where you are and how would you maybe rate yourself in these areas. First, use straightforward communication. Do not beat around the bush. Executives do not have time for it. And you know what? They can take it. So don't worry so much about always cushioning everything. I mean, I don't mean be abrupt and be aggressive and be rude. I just mean be straightforward. Say what you need to say. They're very busy people. They need to kind of move on. But the other great part of this is you're aligning with them. And the more alignment you have with management and the executive team, the more they're going to view you in partnership. You're going to be like this instead of kind of like this, okay? Be precise and concise. So you should, think about what you want to say before you say it. Make sure you're clear on your message. The third one, communicate the big picture or abstract ideas, especially, when we think about higher level leaders and executives. What's so great about them is they tend to be visionaries and they're more abstract thinkers. So the idea is when you're communicating, don't always get so deep into the woods, but maybe talk about the big picture of something that you're working on or something. It could even be about your relationship. And then mirror the words and phrases that they use. I'm not going to read through this entire list, but how did I get this list? Well, I got this by listening to executives. These are words I hear over and over and over. I picked out my favorites. So first, analyzed. Don't just say, oh, I think this is a good idea. I think getting this new software program would be awesome. Or I think getting to do this training would be awesome. Say, I analyzed, this particular thing. I analyzed the different programs that are available that would help increase our productivity. So that shows you gave great thought. Flawless execution. I hear executives say this all the time, especially in terms of their assistants and their staff. Now, that's a big expectation to live up to because we're human and we make mistakes, but that's what they strive for. I love the word strategic. You should use that a lot in your conversation. Strategic planning, having a strategy for your day, having a strategy on how you're going to address interruptions throughout the day. What's our strategy today? You have a lot of meetings, Ms. Executive, and what's our strategy if you're falling behind in all of your meetings? What are we doing today? Holistic is a word I often use. If you've been attending my webinars long enough or been in any of my training, you will hear me speak quite a bit about having a holistic view. That's the big picture view of seeing how everything fits together. So you would have a holistic view of your executive's calendar, meaning you're looking at what happened last week, what's happening this week, and what's happening 2 or 3 weeks out. The other, let's go down the list. Get in the game. It's funny, I have a feeling, don't bet on it, but I hear, I would say, more male executives use this, and it just is. It's something that's a reality. And maybe it has to do with sports, how they tend to love their sports. Not that women don't love sports too, but I'm giving you my honest assessment here. So you could talk about getting in the game. And then let's look at the last 3 bullets. Speak with intelligence, thought, and clarity. This is critically important. Draw a big star by that. Speak with intelligence, thought, and clarity. So again, think before you speak. What are you saying? What are you trying to accomplish in communicating with this particular executive? What do you hope the outcome will be? And I would encourage you to use that strategy everywhere. Even when you're in our webinar chat, think about what you're going to say, contribute, with that intelligence that you have and sharing your great ideas. Use a confident tone. It's really important, especially for women, that when we are speaking with really anyone, to use a confident tone, but especially when you're speaking with management. All right, let's go on. How are we doing in the chat? I wish I could just sit here and read everything that you're writing, but one thing I do want to tell you, I do read the chat after our webinars. So please contribute. I'd love to read your thoughts, your ideas, and also when I see what you have to say and when I read about your comments as well as your challenges, those comments give me ideas for future webinars, blogs, articles. So while I can't address everything today, I will address those ideas in the future. So please share. All right, let's move on because we still have a lot more to cover. So the next is steps to providing upward feedback. A good indicator of a strong relationship between an executive and an assistant is when the assistant can give what I call upward feedback. Managers and executives are not perfect. They're people too, right? But often I find assistants are afraid to give feedback to their executive, even if it's something just little. And I'm going to give you some examples in a few minutes, so stay with me. So in fact, I'm going to do it right now because you might be wondering, what kind of feedback would I give? Well, You could give feedback about not getting enough of your executive's time, not having daily huddles. You could give feedback maybe on a project that your executive's working on. Maybe you need to give feedback to your executive that they're not making time to really talk with their direct reports, and their direct reports are feeling frustrated. So an activity that I love to do when I'm teaching my STAR partnership workshop for assistants, and also when I'm doing private coaching with assistants, and I'm going to ask you this as well, and you could put your ideas in the chat. I'd like you to think about what is one thing you would like your executive to either stop doing, start doing, or do more often. Here are some examples from when I was with the assistants just a few weeks ago and doing those coaching sessions. So here's what some of the assistants said. Maybe you can relate. So this one had to do with more often. One assistant said, just talk to me more often. Don't text me, don't email me, talk to me in person. That's all she wanted. Another, more often. Rely on me more often to respond on your behalf. More often, share more priorities of your job with me. I wish my executive would question the length of meetings more often. And do they really need to attend these meetings because they're in back-to-back meetings? Another, more often, an assistant wanted more explanation on items, projects, and terminology that was being used. Let me share with you what were some of the starts. Some assistants were saying, this is what I want my executive to start doing. Share your frustrations with me. Share with me when you're happy, when you're frustrated. I want you to start doing that for me. One assistant said, start viewing me more as a business partner and not just an admin staff person. Another start, oh, I love this one. Maybe you can relate to this. The assistant said, when I email my executive and I have several questions within that email, I want them to answer all my questions, not just a few of them. Start doing, give me feedback on what you don't like or what I can do better. And then one idea of a stop, the assistant said, I wish you would stop saying yes to everything. She said, my executive says yes to every project, to every meeting, and it's just not feasible. So again, in the chat, I would love to see and for you to share with each other one thing. And remember, even if you have a super fantastic relationship, you can still find one thing to be improved upon. All right, on page 6, here are the steps to providing upward feedback. I'm going to fill in the blanks for you. Now, keep in mind, of course, when you're providing upward feedback or having those difficult conversations with your executive, you always want to be professional. So here is the way to approach it. So number 1 is to be calm and direct. So direct is the important word. Do not beat around the bush. Do not expect your manager to guess what's wrong. Do not expect your manager to know if they are giving you what you need to do a good job. You have to be direct with them. Number 2, schedule an appropriate, so the words appropriate time to meet with your leader. Now you're going to say, I know what you're all going to say, well, there's never a good time. My executive's so busy. Well, I am too, but there are some times that are better than other times. Maybe early morning is the best time, maybe on a Friday afternoon, maybe at the end of the day on a weekday, maybe Friday morning. I mean, figure it out. When is the best time? And remember, this is very, very important for you to remember. You deserve time with your executive. If you don't think that way, you do not have a partnership, because partners make time for each other. Number 3, be collected. So what do I mean by that? I mean, prepare your notes before you walk into the meeting. Now, you might think that if you're writing notes, you're going to look like you don't know what you're doing, but it's actually the opposite. If someone comes into my office and an employee or an associate or somebody that I may be working with, a outside colleague, they come in with notes, I think, wow, they really gave this thought. They are prepared. Yes, let's go. So make your notes. The other area where the notes help you is in case you're in the middle of that conversation and it's not going the way you hope, you can look at your notes and it will draw you back in. The other reason why I like notes is there are words that I often or maybe want to emphasize. I don't want to forget to say. So that's why I like notes also. They draw me to what I want to be sure to mention. Just like I actually have notes, extra notes here with my handout. These are things I don't want to forget to tell you. They're important. Number 4, this is important if you want to star this step. State the domino effect. So let's say that what you want to talk to your executive about, and something I guess we could all relate to, is as assistants, is maybe there's that manager who's always giving you projects and information at the last minute. So the domino effect is what I would say is when I receive projects or tasks at the last minute, I feel stressed, I feel rushed, I maybe don't do as good a job as I can for you, I don't have time to proofread, I can't check the quality of my work, I also maybe don't have the supplies that I need for that. Maybe then I'm putting pressure on other people who are impacted by that work. So I'm not saying when you bring me things late, this is what happens. I'm saying when I receive information late, this is what happens. So the more negative domino effect you can show your executive, the more inclined they're going to be to make a change. Next is to number 5, develop solutions or recommendations. Before you go in or before you're going to talk to your executive, you need to think of ahead of time, think of your recommendations. What are your solutions? You don't want to go in and just dump this on your executive's lap. They're just so busy. They're not going to take the time. So you would come in with 3 or 4 ideas on what you would see happening in the future and make those suggestions. Number 6, remain calm. So the word is calm, C-A-L-M, as you explain your perspective. So this is when you're in that meeting or you're having that conversation with your executive. I mean, you could even have this conversation over a cup of coffee or in a conference room, or if you have an area outside on your company campus, you don't have to have it all stuffy and be in an office, but just be calm as you explain your perspective. Number 7, watch your body language and facial expression. Make sure that you're sitting up tall. Don't be slouching. Look confident. Look like you mean business. But you can also do it with a smile on your face. You don't have to have a scowl or look upset. Number 8, and I'll go back through all of these when I get to the end, so don't worry if you miss a word. Listen to your leader's version. Just as you have a perspective of what's going on, so does your leader. So for example, if my assistant came or someone in my office came to me and talked about me always bringing things at the last minute to them, or they wish I'd do things in a more timely fashion, my version would be, well, you know what? It's because I'm getting last minute notice. I just had a potential client call me today. They're having a meeting in 3 days, and they want me to get this proposal out to them and get this information to, be delivered. Well, that's not my fault. If I'm self-inducing, that's different. But sometimes managers and executives are getting things too late because they got it late. So you need to understand their perspective as well. And then you could still come to an agreement as to how you should handle things in the future. Number 9, focus on the issue. So when you're giving that feedback, maybe that feedback about your executive not giving you enough one-on-one time, focus on what's the issue of that. So instead of getting upset, at your manager as a person, focus on the issue. Number 10, I love this, be confident. Don't act like a victim. So if you're going to go in, maybe you want to talk to your executive about your workload and that there's just way too much to do. You don't want to go in like a victim. Woe is me. I have all these assignments and everybody's coming at me and so many things to do and I don't know how to handle it. No, instead you want to go in, you just want to talk about the workload, present the facts. You're not a victim only if you choose to be a victim. Number 11, accept, ACCEPT. Also, this is a number 1. So next to the number 11, if you would add a number 1. If you are not willing to accept the outcome of the meeting, don't even have it. Okay? The meeting could go 3, or the conversation could go one of 3 ways. 1, your executive's going to love your idea and your recommendations and be open and make change. 2, they're going to like part of your idea. 3, they're going to say, hey, too bad, that's the way it is, live with it, right? So you have to be willing to accept the outcome. Number 12, always, always, always thank your leader for making the time, taking the time to meet with you, even if it didn't turn out the way you wanted to. Show your appreciation, because when you show your appreciation, they're going to want to have more sessions like that with you. So let me go through the numbers 1 through 12, fill in the blanks in case you missed anything. Number 1, the word is direct. Number 2, appropriate. Number 3, collected. Number 4, domino effect. Number 5, recommendations. Number 6, calm. Number 7, facial. Number 8, version. Number 9, issue. Number 10, confident. Number 11, accept. And number 12 is thank. All right, we still have a few more items to cover here before we get to your Q&A. And by the way, I don't mind going over by 5 minutes today. So if you want to stay on, I'm happy to do that with you. The strategies for supporting multiple managers. Now, for those of you who are watching this webinar and maybe you're saying, well, I don't support multiple people, so this doesn't pertain to me. You know what? The day may come. It's coming faster, more often, in other words. In fact, several months ago, I got a call from a huge, huge organization that is really they were looking at the ratio of their executive support or assistant support to executives. So they were in a position where they had the one-on-one ratio for years, and now they're doing a lot of research where they're thinking of really changing the ratios. So pay attention, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to go through all of these. I will tell you that all 10 work. I use these myself as an assistant. These are good ideas other assistants have used. I'm going to focus on my favorite. So number 1, encourage your managers to use uniform procedures. This really helps. When I've gone in and I've done coaching work where an assistant is supporting multiple people, or even when we have multiple managers, I always talk about using the same procedures, how you're going to manage emails, follow-up systems, appointments, travel. If you have everybody manager doing their own thing, it's going to be a lot harder for you. And in fact, we have an operating guide. I don't know if I can reach it. Hold on. Sorry, but I'm not sorry because I want to show you this. I created in Chrissy Civic, we created this operating manual for executives and assistants. And the very reason was because managers and executives wanted standardized processes. They were asking me, how do I do business day to day with my assistant? So the more uniformity you create, the easier it will be on you and everyone else on the team. I love number 2, make sure you limit personal tasks. I'm curious, how many of you are asked to do personal tasks for your managers? If you are, if you want to chat about that, what kinds of tasks? Are you asked to maybe schedule appointments for them, vacations for them? So when you're managing multiple people, you just have to learn to say no. It's got to be about the work. I love number 3 as well. Treat each manager fairly and respect. Oh, dog sitting. Wow. Good. Well, I don't know. Is that good or bad? Is whether you like a person or not. I mean, sometimes I know as an assistant, you might have your favorites or people you get along with easier than others, but just treat them all equally and fairly. Let's go down to number 7, except for time critical projects. This is what I used to do. I did the senior manager's work first. But if you're supporting multiple people, you really need to discuss how is your time supposed to be divvied up? And I just talked about this too a few weeks ago in the coaching sessions. In other words, if you have a senior executive, are you expected to devote 70% of the time to the senior executive's work and then divide the 30% with the rest of the team? Or does the senior manager only expect 50% of your time and to spread the 50% out with other team members? I mean, have you ever had that discussion with your managers? What's the expectation so that you can deliver? Is the expectation real? Is it realistic? Number 9, find out what projects are coming your way so you can plan accordingly. Again, don't wait till they surprise you. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Ask questions. What's on the horizon? What's coming up? What are you going to need from me? And I am number 10. This is something I used to do as well as an assistant when I supported multiple people. I try to get pieces of a project as they were ready, instead of waiting for just the whole one big project to be delegated to me. I took it in chunks. That way it was more manageable. Well, before we get to Q&A, I have some really, really exciting news for you, and maybe you already know about this, but if you loved what we covered today and you want more meat, I'm really excited to announce that I am going to be in Chicago this April for a one-day workshop on building a star partnership. This is going to be sponsored by Sure Incorporated. I'm so excited that they're participating in this event. We're going to be using their special theater to host this event. And I'm going to dig into this topic much deeper than what I did today. And some of the other ideas that I'm going to be covering when I go to Chicago is how to shape your leader's perception, how to get better information from your manager, how to help your executive maintain a competitive edge, how to resolve your partnership program. So today was just a small chunk. I mean, this is actually a full day program that I deliver. And like I said, this is a unique event, and I'm going to Chicago on April 24th because I want to kick off Administrative Professionals Week with a bang. So if you can come celebrate with me, please do. I've made this very affordable for you, just $179. And if you bring 4 or more people, you get $20 off per person. The other thing that attendees are going to get is my workbook, Building a Star Partnership. It's 72 pages. And the only other way you can get this workbook is if you attend my Star Achievement Series training program. So I'm going to give this to anyone who comes to that program. We're going to have fun. We're going to kick off the week. What else can I tell you about it? One more thing, and then we're going to get to your questions. So hang in there. If you do register by this Friday, I want to give a special extra bonus for you, and that is to offer you my Managing Your Executives Day online course. It's a $99 value, and I want to give it to you free. So for anyone who signs up by Friday, we've already been I announced this workshop actually last fall, so the seats are going fast. We do have limited seating. So the other item I wanted to tell you, that if you do want to sign up and take advantage of the bonus gift, the code to use is Chicago, and just type it in all capital letters. Chicago, that's pretty easy to remember, right? So I hope I see you if you can at all make it, because it's the only city I'm going to. I usually do not go on the road. I'm making an exception this year, and it's happening because of the wonderful people at Sure Incorporated. So Malia is going to help me with the Q&A, and I'm excited to hear all the questions, Malia. So why don't we get started? Because I bet we have a lot.
Thank you. We do have quite a few questions. Lisa is saying that she's tried several times to team build with her manager with no success, and wants to know if you have any suggestions for that.
A suggestion I have is to really change up your approach. I'm not sure what approaches you've been using, but what I always say is when something doesn't work, or you've tried the same approach multiple times, you have to really shake it up and use an entirely different approach. Another way to do that might be, again, because I don't really know what approaches you've been using, but to maybe get your manager to talk about, what is their perspective, what is their expectation in working with an assistant. And I have to be really honest, sometimes, yes, there are executives who just don't want to go to the stage 2 or 3. And if that's the case, then you have to, evaluate your own happiness. And if you can live with that, and still feel like you're contributing value within your job. Also, what I'd like to recommend is go to the Office Dynamics website. We have over 1,000 blogs, and I know there's a huge category of advice and information on how to approach your executive and build that partnership. And also on our website, I have several articles I've written about the partnership. So maybe you'll find some specific ideas, in those areas.
Great. Thank you, Joan. Laura is also asking, kind of along the same lines, how do you get your leaders to appreciate and respect your partnership, or get them to realize that a partnership is important to you?
Communicating is the first, answer that came to my mind, especially as Malia read the last part. It's having that conversation and being able to say that this is what I view. It's really important to me. I spend 40 hours a week, in this organization, and I spend 40 hours a week helping you be successful. And I want to have that strategic partnership. It's being authentic. Don't be afraid to be authentic and sincere and express what it is, that you want and you desire. I know while sometimes you feel like as an assistant, like you can't say certain things because they're executives. But I can honestly tell you when I'm in those face to face, one on one with those executives and we're having honest dialogue, I see them open up. I see them talk and share. The other suggestion I have, which would be a great idea for all of you if you're having that same issue, is you just finished this webinar with me. So this is perfect timing. Within the next few days, I would go into my executive. I would take my hand out. I would say, I just attended this hour webinar with Joan Burge, who is a world leader in the administrative and executive coaching profession with 46 years of experience. She's been on both sides of the desk. And this is what she taught us. This is what I learned about the value of a partnership. Could I just have 10 minutes of your time and go through some of the points that I learned? I'd love to get your perspective and see if you would like to, work on any of these ideas. And again, you say it with confidence and you go in and be confident.
Great. Megan is saying that wants to know how could she get her executive to stop calling and emailing after work hours. She's saying that she gets in trouble if she does that, if she calls or texts after work. So how does she get her executive to care and stop doing that?
That's really, really good. So I guess was there clarification? Is the executive
She
texting
says
and
that
emailing the assistant or other people?
it looks like she's texting and contacting the assistant, and the assistant has tried talking to her several times, and gets in trouble for sending emails after work when she's off work. But the executive doesn't seem to care. The executive will still do it.
Okay. So there's a something I did a webinar on, I think it was like over a year ago, and it should be in our shopping cart, but it's about setting healthy boundaries. And it is really important. This is an important discussion, and it can be a big issue today when assistants and executives, are tethered constantly. So one is what are the parameters? I mean, if you're an hourly employee, especially, you're supposed to get paid if you are working, after work hours. So first, you got to figure that out. What are the legal ramifications of that happening? Secondly, there's two routes you can take. One is you just don't respond. And I hate to say this, but you don't respond to the email or the text unless it's urgent. And so then your executive starts to realize, oh, well, my assistant isn't tethered to his or her device, even though I'm tethered to my device. Obviously, the best advice I could give you is you need to have that verbal conversation, or write your executive an email if you can't get the face-to-face time, and find out exactly what is the expectation. I have seen assistants who have kind of what I call created the monster by they start responding to emails and they start doing work after hours. And then in the executive's mind, they believe that's okay. So it snowballs and it gets worse. So you've got to stop things, as soon as you can if they're not going down the right path. But just to recap again, try again, have a verbal conversation. Make sure you understand, are there any legal ramifications? Um, Discuss, the expectation. The other, of course, is to express that, once your workday is over, that you value family time, you value your downtime, because that helps you be a better employee. And therefore, you will not be responding to texts or emails, after certain work hours, and just make an agreement. If it is an emergency, if it is critical, maybe your executive's traveling, then yes, you do check maybe for a text. You've got to get an agreement. And like I said, if the verbal doesn't work, then I would send an email.
Great, Joan. Debbie is feeling like she's not respected by her manager. Her manager doesn't make time for her. When she does get a few minutes with the manager is texting and answering her phone and checking emails. What can you suggest for that?
Yeah, it's such a bad habit. I hear that so often. And recently, what one assistant did, and I was really proud of her, is she was in a meeting with her executive, and she just said to that executive, I would greatly appreciate it if I could have your full attention, because I have a lot to go through with you, and the sooner we can get through this, the sooner I can be out of your office, and then you can get on with your work. So again, we have to command respect from others. Yes, they shouldn't do that. They should know better. But you know what? Everybody's doing it today, not just executives. It's just there's a lot of rudeness out there. But like I said, when you see it happen, address it right away. And again, you can say it in a very nice way that I would greatly appreciate it if just for 5 minutes you can, give me your full attention. I can get through this quickly and I'll be out of your office.
Okay, great. Do we have time for one more, Joan?
We do, yeah. Let's take 2 more.
Okay. So Angela is saying that her
stay.
supervisor is an introvert, and she finds it really hard to communicate with him because he likes his alone time to answer his emails and things of that sort. This creates a big challenge for her, and he doesn't want to meet on a weekly basis to touch base with her at all.
Woo! All right. I wish I had your executive here with me, or I wish I could come there and talk to your executive, because I can easily have these conversations with them. But one, yes, we want to respect, and understand that there are people who really do want their quiet time. They don't want a lot of the talking and socialization. However, there is great value. And you're saying your executive doesn't even want to meet once a week. I encourage daily huddles, not even weekly huddles. So one is really getting them to see the benefits of why you should have that conversation. I'm just trying to think if there's anywhere on our website where I listed that, because I know in the guide that I have for executives and assistants, that's where I get into explaining the benefits first of the scheduled meetings. So some of the benefits, I would talk about is when we do meet on a regular basis and we are conversing face to face or even on the phone, it diminishes last minute chaos. It decreases paperwork buildup. It gives us an opportunity to clarify the expectations of the work that needs to be done. It definitely increases, like I said, the productivity. So basically, you've got to put together something. And again, if he or she doesn't want to talk to you, I would put something in writing about here's how these would benefit us, just like I talked about in the upward feedback. Here's how this would benefit us. Here's why we need to have that more, the ongoing communication, but also get them to see how the ongoing communication helps them, not, only you, because if they can see the benefit, to themselves, then they might be more inclined to want to do that. And then also what I do is, in my book, I make a list of what are some of the things you would discuss, because sometimes they're also thinking, well, what do we have to huddle about? Why do we have to huddle? What will we talk about? We email each other all the time. So I would actually be very organized and precise. Here's what we could cover. It'll only take us 10 minutes. If we do this on a regular basis, it won't take a lot of your time. All right, I guess we have to go. Of course, I could keep talking, you know me, but I want to thank everyone for attending. I just want to remind you, if you want to sign up for the full day workshop and kickoff Administrative Professionals Week, in Chicago, remember, and if you sign up before Friday, to use the code Chicago in capital letters. Also, let's see, March 7th. Yes, March 7th is our next webinar date. I'm working on a couple topic ideas, but should be releasing that in about a week. So I hope to see you then. Thank you all and have a fantastic day.
Bye.
Bye.